Now, the guns had fallen silent in West Asia after 2 days of intense strikes between the United States and Iran, as mediating countries are now again pushing to try and bring diplomacy back into focus. Iran has again warned that it will retaliate against any attack that the Americans or the Israelis stage on its infrastructure. And Iran has said that it will hit back hard at Israel if it gets involved again. On the other hand, the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has said that Israel is now prepared to again start its military attacks against Iran if the US wants it to, vowing to do so with even greater force. Now, on Thursday, there were multiple locations across southern Iran that were bombed by the Americans, triggering an immediate counterattack from Tehran with ballistic missile attacks on American military targets across the Gulf. Iranian state media has reported there were multiple explosions in the southern port city of Bandar Abbas, and several areas of Bushehr province were also reportedly hit, including regions surrounding the Bushehr nuclear power plant. And amidst the renewed escalation, shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is now plunged pretty sharply. This shows as to how the Strait of Hormuz has become the central battleground in a war that began over Iran's alleged nuclear ambitions. At the same time, the US assurances that the Strait of Hormuz can quickly return to normal and remain fully operational to global shipping is facing growing skepticism. The United States and its Arab Gulf allies are determined to prevent Iran from establishing hegemony over Hormuz, the lifeline for a large share of the world's oil and gas supplies. Iran, on the other hand, insists on asserting joint authority over the strait and has floated the idea of transit fees or service charges. Reports suggest that the White House is now preparing for what could become a multi-day or even a multi-week or possibly a multi-month exchange of fire with Iran over the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is once again plunged, and according to the marine traffic data, only about 13 commercial vessels transited the strait in the last 24 hours. For Tehran, the strait remains its strongest bargaining chip. Since the war began, the Iranian forces have mined the strait, attacked commercial vessels, and reduced traffic through the waterway by an estimated 95%. The result has been the biggest supply disruption in the history of global oil markets. Control over the strait is also central to Iran's asymmetric warfare strategy. The US possesses overwhelming military superiority. Iran's greatest strength, however, lies in its political resolve and determination to survive. For Tehran, the dispute is not really about toll revenue. Any income from the transit fee would be modest compared to Iran's oil revenues, but some say the toll collection itself could be larger than the amount of revenue that Iran earns from its oil exports. And it is seeking to establish a precedent of sovereignty over the world's most strategic energy choke point, its most powerful leverage in any future negotiation with the United States of America. And earlier we spoke with war correspondent and analyst Elijah Magnier. Listen to what he had to say.
No, the US cannot have the Strait of Hormuz to its previous situation prior February 2026 because it has remained the only leverage Iran has today to negotiate about its frozen asset, lifting all the sanctions, and the compensation for all the damage that the Israeli and the US war on Iran. Therefore, if we look at the picture from 2018, when Donald Trump pulled out of the JCPOA that was stipulated by Barack Obama in 2015, until 2026, Iran had no leverage whatsoever to ask or negotiate with the Americans about lifting the sanctions. The Strait of Hormuz today is the only card Iran has, and regardless of the threat and the menace that the Americans will direct toward Iran, even by bombing it every single day or intensifying the bombing, Iran will not let go, and the Strait of Hormuz will not return to prior February 2026. Well, Iran is not saying that it's not going to allow a free transit. However, Iran, according to the MOU paragraph 5, is negotiating with Oman, and I think they've reached an agreement on specific fees, like in the Bosphorus, like in other passages around the world, where Iran will ask for services fees, which means environment support, services that they can offer to ships in distress, or whatever services they can offer, but they will not ask for payment for transit. However, that is related and only depending on the end of the war. The war has not ended. We're still in a state of war, and the Americans did not fulfill the MOU related to releasing the Iranian asset that is stipulated in the first paragraphs of the MOU.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.